Hello and welcome to the final day of our big launch week for the StoryTown Magazine. And if you haven't gotten your copy yet, come by the McKinney Center and pick up your copy of the StoryTown Magazine that features all of the different StoryTown programs that we have here in Jonesboro, to include our plays, our radio shows, our training programs, our youth program, our film classes, our Christmas fundraiser, our podcast, and so much more. I want to give a big shout out to Lily Urbach. She is the one who designed this beautiful magazine. She was our AmeriCorps volunteer at the McKinney Center this year, and one of her major roles was taking all of the content over the past year and putting it together in this really beautiful magazine. She did the layout, she put together the graphics, she chose the pictures, and thank you, Lily. Thank you so much for making this StoryTown magazine a reality and doing such a wonderful job on it. Well, to round out the week, we have got some interviews with some of our cast members. They're the ones who bring to life all of the stories that we go out and spend time collecting that you've heard about over this past week. They're the ones who put life into these stories, and we want to talk with some of those folks right now. I'm about to introduce you to Stephen Bashor and June Bashor, who were in Lifelines this year at the beginning of the year, and that was the 2020 community play that is on the cover and also in the center spread of this magazine. And also welcome you to, you three. And Stephen, will you introduce?
This is Adelaide Bashor, my youngest child. And then this is June over here, my middle child, and I am Stephen Bashor.
And I'm a pretty far distance away, and you all are a family. So if you would like to remove your mask, you don't have to, but if you'd like to remove your masks for the interview, you can. We love to see your faces. And it was so great. And June was also in the youth program at the middle school, at Jonesboro Middle School this year, and her poetry, one of her poems, is featured in the magazine. I bet that was a surprise, huh?
Yeah.
So I would love to talk to both of you all about what it was like being in a play that had stories about people from the community. In fact, having one of the people in your scenes actually show up for that play. So Stephen, let's start with you. What was it like for you to be in this play about real people and real experiences?
Well, I will preface by saying that it was a new experience for me, just acting. I've been a performer for many years, mostly playing music. I had never done a play, but doing a play that has a real basis in history was very interesting, especially when your family comes to watch, and afterwards you're talking and they're going, oh, your grandfather was directly affected by the town of Butler being flooded, so they could build a dam, and it was really interesting. And then to go on a little further, we found out that the Bucket Brigade, we had a family member who was part of that Bucket Brigade. So that was, it was a very, very unique, interesting, wonderful experience, and it wound up being educational as far as filling in gaps of our family history that we did not know.
Wow, so you found some hidden history
Absolutely.
in this year's play.
Yeah.
June, what was it like for you playing somebody who lives right there on Main Street?
It was an interesting experience. The past plays that I've been in have mostly been very fictional, and I've never really put myself in that kind of position where I'm someone was this person that I'm playing as, I'm not feeling exactly the way that person felt, but I'm somewhat, I'm just kind of seeing that story.
Did you do any special work or homework or research about the role that you played? I believe you played the part of Nancy McCracken, and that was her story, I believe. And did you do anything special to to tell that story that was set in the 1940s?
Well, I don't know, it was, it's hard to put this,
What about when you put the costume on? How did that make you feel, and how did that transform your performance once you stepped out of June clothes and stepped into 1943?
It was interesting, like, especially the costume design and everything, like, I don't know, that was also a very new experience, you know, being up on stage and like dress and, you know, clothes that someone would actually wear, you know.
And I would love to know what it was like for the two of you to be in a play together. You're a family, you're father and daughters, and that's not something you often see. So I would love to hear about that experience.
Well, I think we worked well together. Not too many scenes together, but I feel like behind the scenes, and especially at home, we were constantly trying to, you know, support each other and you know, practice lines with one another. It was a wonderful, you know, experience, a wonderful bonding experience that we can say, you know, now that we have done that. We were in a play together, and I mean, you know, we work well together outside of the play, but it'll be a memory that we will have and we'll share and we'll talk about at family gatherings for years to come.
So, Stephen, you were also a musician in the show. You played a musician in the show, but you also played music in the show. So it was a double role, and it was original music. Talk to me about being part of the creation and your additions to the music in the show.
I didn't go out of my way to add too many additions or try to, you know, to in any way influence it in the way that I would normally play. You know, to a degree, there was a bit of a learning curve there too, because it was quite different from what I normally play. That said, I absolutely love playing with Brett. I really enjoy, you know, just his company and his presence and playing with him. And you know, I think it did help that I was playing a bass player as my role, and then I got to hop off and then go play a little bass guitar as well. And I did ask around a little bit about the character I was supposed to be, and for the most part, I just got, "You're fine. Just do you. Just be the bass player."
So you were in a scene from a story that was shared by Aaron Jackson. What was it like for you when you knew that Aaron was in the audience that night? Or did you know that he was in the audience when you were performing that night?
I had actually gotten a heads up before that he was going to be in the audience. And I tried not to let it, bother me. I didn't want to, come off as being nervous about that. I guess really I just hoped I'm going to try and give a consistent, performance, same one I gave last night, and hopefully he enjoys it and feels that I did it some justice.
Did he talk to you after the show?
I did not get a chance to. He was incredibly busy, so I did not get a chance to speak with him. But we wound up messaging back and forth on Facebook at some point in time after that.
That's great. And then I loved having all of you at the music rehearsals, and Addie would sing along too, wouldn't she?
Yes, she did. Actually, she still will sing Lifelines. Sometimes it just comes over her and she starts singing it. Oh,
that is great to hear. June, what would you say was your favorite part of being involved in the production? It doesn't even have to be, the part you had or when you were on stage, because there's 6 weeks of work going into this. In that time frame, what stands out for you?
I don't know. I feel like something that always, kind of stands out to me whenever I'm, getting into an acting sort of job is always the costumes and preparing for the show. I've always liked costumes, makeup, that's kind of what's always my favorite about all of this.
Were there any other actors that were your age that you might have become friends with in the show?
Yes. Well, we don't really talk too much now, but we did, share like contacts and stuff.
Of course, because right when the play ended was when COVID hit, right? And everybody's world kind of changed at that part. Are there any other moments for either one of you that stand out doing the play, or in rehearsal, or in set building, or in any of the performances that really stand out for you?
Well, I will say that I have noticed some similarities in our life dealing with the pandemic and show nights. There's this constant like sense of urgency, and there's this rush, and you're trying to, go over your lines in your head and make sure that you're hitting your cues, and you've got the right costume on for this particular scene. And I feel like a lot of that, just translated over into our life, moving forward, because now we're living in this world where it's like, let's make sure everybody sanitize their hands. Let's make sure we have everything we need before we go. And it's this, I feel like there's still this constant sense of urgency, and you're trying to, just keep in your mind 100 different things that are going on at once. And I don't know, it doesn't feel too much different from the night of a live show.
And so, finally, at the end, was it what you expected when you came in to rehearse the very first time?
Not at all. The very first time I came, it was in this room right here, and I came in with a very open mind. I did not know what to think, but my first impression of just some of the songs, what I walked away with on that first day was completely off on what the actual show was. And I very gladly enjoyed taking it all moment by moment, as it all kind of came to me. And I felt like with every passing week, we were getting together something like twice a week, I think, at that time. After that first week, I thought, well, I think I've got an idea. I was reading through script and whatnot. Fast forward to a month later when we're doing dress rehearsals, my opinions and what I thought the play was going to be had totally changed and transformed. And I mean, I loved it every step of the way, but I really, really enjoyed every moment of helping you all produce that play. It was wonderful.
It was so great having you be part of it. And what was it like for you? So your first experience is coming for a music rehearsal in here, because of course the McKinney Center is quite busy throughout the weeks, usually when the pandemic's not going on.
Yeah.
What was it like for you to walk into the theater space the first time, and then and walk into the set?
Well, I'd only been in the McKinney Center one other time, and it did not look like what I'd walked into that second time. I think I was much younger, probably just about to start high school or something. It was I don't even remember why I went in there that first time, but I remember walking in and thinking, oh wow, it looks wonderful. This is beautiful. Real happy with the amount of space, and you immediately want to make a little noise and see what the acoustics are like. And yeah. It was a really nice experience walking in there and seeing this this stage and this open space where you could perform and entertain people. And ultimately I guess I am an entertainer by heart, and I enjoy it. And I don't know, that first time I walked in there, I thought, this is going to be wonderful. This is going to be great.
Awesome. And June, what was it like for you the first day when Main Street was up, 16 feet up in the air?
It was crazy. Like, I saw the pieces whenever they were putting it together, and I was thinking, it's not going to be like as tall as it was. Like, I did not expect it to be that tall, and it was crazy because I just saw the pieces and I was like, yeah, it's gonna be tall, but not that tall. And when I walked in, I was like, what is this?
What did it feel like to be walking through a set of your hometown?
It was crazy. Like, you know, like some of the signs, I was like, oh wait, yeah, that's right there, and that's right there, all of that. You know, it was.
It felt familiar.
Yeah.
If you had any advice for anybody out there who might be thinking about being in the play or telling a story, we'll start with you, June. What would you say?
Don't lose confidence in yourself. I feel like, you know, especially whenever you're like about to go on stage for the first time, like first show, and you're just like, oh God, what if I mess up my lines? What if I do this? What if I do that? Just like remember, you know, you've been practicing this for who knows how long, you know, like weeks on end, and it's just like, you know, you've been practicing this, you know, you can do this. You know, just don't lose confidence in yourself, and don't kind of freak out that first time. You know, like, and it's okay if you may stutter a few times, you know.
Do you feel like the cast would have supported you even if you had lost a line or something?
Yeah, like, I think even on one of those first plays, I messed up, like, on one of my first lines, and, like, I stuttered, I repeated something, and I went backstage and I was like, oh God, I just messed up on one of my lines, and they were like, oh no, it's fine. You sounded completely natural out there. Like, no human really talks and just never stutters or anything like that. No one talks like that, so that was all right.
Good.
You know.
Good. Yeah. And Stephen, what's something looking back that really stands that you walk away with and kept when you left the theater?
I mean, you know, aside from the overall experience in itself, I will most certainly remember that for a long time. But I mean, I think really, you know, going back to the family history that I learned afterwards, they are things that I was very interested to know, especially because, you know, we don't have many grandparents that are with us anymore. So to find out this information was something that I will always take away with me. But as well, I still remember those songs, and those will most certainly stay with me forever. And this one will help me remember them because she loved them so much, she still sings them to this day.
I still remember her singing them, and it was so cute during rehearsal. I do. I remember you singing Lifelines. And maybe Addie can be in the next play.
Ooh, would you like that? I bet you would be good.
Thank you all so much, and I hope to see you in the next play, and I hope maybe you feel like sharing a story. So I'm going to let you all slip out while I introduce our next person. Thanks again for coming in, Stephen and June and Addie.
You're so welcome. It was
Appreciate
wonderful to see you
so
all again.
much. Yeah, it's so good to
Hopefully
see you again too.
Next time it'll be, you know,
yes.
a little bit more uncovered.
Yes, it's this age of COVID, right? But we're doing what we can to keep people together and but safely, you know, 6 feet, and we've had families come in here. And what's really great about this is that so many people that are involved in these StoryTown programs are family. And so the next person that we're going to be speaking with, Donna Olujani, she has been in, go ahead and have a seat, Donna. She has been in the community plays here since the very, very first one, and she was in it with her family. And that amazing set that we were just talking about was painted by her daughter. And the young man, why don't you tell everybody who the cover boy is of this magazine, Donna?
That's my son, Ronquil Joyner.
And how old was Ronquil when the two of you, oh, and Essence too. Essence was our stage manager last year, but she couldn't join us this year because she's in college working really, really hard. But she did come to the show. So when you all were in it the first time, how old was Ronquil?
I was trying to think of that this morning. I think it was it 9 years ago when I Am Home?
It was 2010. No, 2011, yes.
Okay, so he would have been 9. He's 18 now. So.
9, so he
Yes.
was in it when he was 9.
Yes, and Essence would have been 11, 12, something like that.
And of course, you were in it too.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So we've got a couple of plays to talk about because you've been in all of them,
Yes.
and so has your family. What was it like being in the very first community play and for you, but also to be in it with your family?
I was thinking about that earlier today, and I was trying to remember. I can't recall how we even found out about it. It's been so long ago, but I do remember one of the reasons that I wanted the children to get in the plays. At that time, my oldest that did the stage, helped with the stage design, she was in college, and so I had two at home, and I really wanted the children. It was a time where I wanted them to be proud of and know more about where they were from, and it was a time when they were. Some of the children were like moving to Johnson City schools and things like that. I grew up here. I wanted them to be proud of Jonesboro. And so I thought this would be a great way for them to know some history. But I didn't really realize how much I was going to learn as well as they were going to learn and be proud of Jonesboro and the things that the community is involved in. So it's been really good because we've grown kind of up. They've grown up as they've been in the plays. So when they started, they played children in the plays, and now they're were able to be adults in the plays. So it's a really neat transition to see and to look back on. And then with Daniqua, I was really glad she was able to get involved because she's an artist, and she always kind of envies me and the other two for being able to get up and speak. She cannot speak in public, and so when she was able to do something that was behind the scenes and to get involved, that was really good for all of us to do that as a family.
And her sets, boy, she has a huge voice that comes through her artistry. And those sets that she painted that we were just talking about that are 16 feet tall are incredible, and she did such an amazing job with
And that was
those.
her first, she had never done anything like that before, so that was her first experience with that. And then I already tried previously to get her and David hooked up so she can learn some things and he can maybe be a mentor to her. So she kind of just, I think in essence had a little bit to do with that, kind of just volunteered her for that. And so I had to talk to her and was like, okay, it's okay. She was a little upset at first. I was like, you can learn something with this. And so it was really good to see her and David get together, and she was able to learn from David. And so now she's more interested in that actual, the larger, she was doing it on a smaller scale, art and painting, where it was something that she'd never done at that big scale. So now she's able to see that and more interested in it now. And her and David are able to, I think they might be doing some projects together in the future.
They're actually working on one right now.
Okay.
I'll tell you about in a moment. But the David that she's speaking about is David Kehs, who's actually going to be here later on in the show, talking about their experience as well. So do you remember the scene that you were in that very first play? Do you recall it?
Probably the one that I recall, I Am Home.
Mm-hmm.
The one that probably brings the most is, I think it's one that I didn't really have any speaking in, was when I was playing, I guess, Alfred Greenlee's mother.
Yes.
And I don't know, that's the one that sticks with me the most. I can't recall whatever else I did in that play.
It's amazing to me
Yeah.
that the part that sticks out for you is a non-speaking role.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot.
Right.
Those seemingly small roles are really powerful because they're connected to real people. What was it like for you? Did you know Alfred Greenlee?
Oh yes, Alfred Greenlee. I called him Granddaddy Ack actually, because and he's not my grandfather, but a lot of us called him that. And I grew up at Bethel Christian Church, and so he was a deacon and fixture. So he was part of my church family, part of the community. So I knew him. I didn't know the wonderful stories that I learned about him through the play, and I think I'm a little bit younger than his children, but I know him, his children, and the family itself. And probably if we dug hard enough somewhere back in there, we're probably actually kin somehow down the road. But yeah, I knew him. I just didn't know, and that's the good thing the wonderful thing about being in the plays is that I learned so much about people that I knew and grew up knowing, but I didn't know that part of their story or the history. And it just kind of, the plays kind of pulled everything together. It was kind of like how I grew up in this church and went away, got married, came back, and still was learning stuff about people that I thought I knew, but I didn't know their story and their history.
So you originally wanted the kids to be part of this so that they could learn about Jonesboro, but everybody did.
Yeah, I ended up learning so
family.
much. I didn't realize so much about Alfred Greenlee as far as what his connectedness and what he did for the community, as far as the African American community, and connecting it with the rest of Jonesboro community. I didn't realize. I guess because I was living it and in it, I didn't realize what he was actually doing.
Why is it important that we tell that story and the other stories that have been in the subsequent plays? Why do you think that's important?
Well, as we see what's going on right now in the atmosphere of the U.S., even the local community, if history repeats itself and if we don't learn from it and talk about it, it just seems to come back around. Or we forget that what's already been fought for, and I'm gonna get emotional with that one, but just keep it. I guess the biggest thing. I grew up with also. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Well, Ron Kill played the. I didn't think of his name. The football player.
Johnny
Johnny Russell.
who was here yesterday.
Yeah, I am the same age as his oldest daughter. Went to school with her, grew up with him, and did not know. I didn't even know he was the first white football player at ETSU. Did not know his story. And when Ron Kill played that part, it actually helped him to see what Johnny had paid for him, what Johnny had already done for him as a football player, as a black man. And to see it, I mean, I could have told Ron Kill that story. My dad could have told him that story, but for him to actually feel it, and for him to talk to Johnny and to see how their relationship now, from him playing him in the play, they have now a relationship that is really neat, and really to see that and Ron Kill really looks at him in a whole nother light. And before it was just granddad's friend that he goes fishing with. He didn't realize who this man really was.
That's powerful.
Because he knew him. He knew him. He grew up with him. He was an elder. He was my dad's really close friend. They go fishing. But he didn't know his story. And I don't think if he had been in the play, he might not have never known the story. And then to be able to play his part. And then when he came to see us practice that first time, it was really neat to see because he shared some more of the history, some more. I saw a little bit where Paul was talking yesterday and how he had said that he had shared some things with him that he didn't want everybody to know. And that's what happened with him and Ron Kill. He was able to share some things with Ron Kill, and that I don't think Ron Kill would have ever known if he hadn't been involved in the play.
Thanks for sharing that. And your dad had a story in last year's play about this very building that we're in. What was it like to see your own dad's story in the play?
It's really, like I said, I've learned more about other people. I also learned more about my own dad. And I think Ron Kill is being involved with the plays and everything, and then Ron Kill actually staying with him for the previous 2 years, was able to pull out more history and more stories that he wouldn't share because my dad is really, I guess, more private with his personal stories, and so a lot of people don't know, and he probably a lot like me too because he doesn't want to get emotional. So he doesn't speak a lot of that stuff. But Ron Kill, in turn, has been able to get some more things out of him. So just the fact that him, hey, granddad, this was said in the play. Did you experience that? What was your experience in that? So he was able to ask more questions of him I don't think he would have asked or even knew that he needed to ask. There's being in the plays makes you know that there's things that you need to have conversations with people about that you never really thought about before. That everybody has a story. Everybody has everybody has a past, but everybody has a story, and everybody's story is really unique in itself.
Yes. I have to say, one of my favorite moments with your family happened in the first play with Ronquil and Iaga. Do you remember when that happened? Can you tell that story?
Well, I'm not sure. There were several. Are you talking about when he was wanting to?
When he didn't
be with the adults.
He was caught. Well, he was caught between. Iaga had set. Iaga is the choreographer, and he had set movements for the children, and he had set movements for adults. And suddenly, Ronquil was alone in the middle of the floor while the other two groups were forming. And Iaga said, "What are you doing?" And
I don't really recall.
Okay.
I don't recall that.
I do. He said to Iaga, "What group am I supposed to be in?" And Iaga said, "What group do you feel like you need to be in?" And he looked at both groups. And this was a second season that we did this. The first season he was with all the kids. I think he had turned 10 by the time we did the next play. And he walked over with the adults. And at that point, and Iaga even noticed this too, Ronquil had the choice to still be a kid or to work towards being a grown-up. And he walked over there and the grown-ups embraced him. And it was just a powerful moment of choice that I had never experienced anything like that in all the years that I've been doing this, and I still think about that. It's as fresh in my mind as it was 10 years ago when it happened, or almost 10 years ago when it happened. Just to see him caught between those two groups and not knowing what to do, but then clearly just making a choice. And at that point, I will say, he became a Wilma watcher. We had a cast member. We love Wilma Williams Chanley. Our last year's play was all about Wilma. And Wilma, sometimes we worried that she was going to walk off a stage or a ramp or take a wrong step. So there were Wilma watchers. He became a Wilma watcher. He became a set changer. He became so responsible. He moved from that kid place. And now he just is the Roan Scholar at ETSU. And he's a freshman there now. Yes. And just incredible stories. And I love how you said that the plays helped him open up a dialogue with his grandfather, with John, and who knows who else it's opened up with him. But you put it so well about everybody having a unique story. Fast forward, we're now, what keeps drawing you back? Is it that same thing?
Yes, and then also it's kind of become, it's become a thing where it's like, especially when children get older now, it's become a thing where it's something that we can do together and have time together. It's funny, Essence really wanted to do something the last time, but with school she couldn't. But now it's like, Daniqua automatically is like, we've even had a conversation this past Sunday where they were like, oh man, it should be time for us to start thinking about, they were asking me, has Jules got another play coming? What's going on with that? Are we going to be able to do that with COVID? How's that gonna look and everything? So it's like kind of come a family tradition to want to be in the plays, to want to, and then we've made great friendships with people that otherwise we wouldn't have. That we were just here, and you think Jonesboro is so small, but still somehow there's people we don't know and don't see. So yeah, we've made great friendships with it, and and Ron Kill became got a really interest in acting and everything, and went on in high school. Essence did the same thing, and I don't think if they had not been in those first plays, they wouldn't have went down that.
I remember seeing Essence's
Yeah.
play in high school.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to hear that. And Daniqua and David, who we're going to be talking to in a few moments, we are doing a new version of our annual Christmas play. It's going to be a drive-through spectacular that's going to be amazing. And David and Daniqua are doing the signage that's going to be
Okay.
in front of each living tableau. News is going to be coming out soon, but you're getting a sneak peek here today about what it's going to be. And we're going to have living scenes that you're going to drive through, including a living nativity with goats from one of our
Oh, wow.
families who also has a farm. We're going to have a living Hanukkah. We're going to have a living Brazilian New Year's Eve and Three Kings Day from Puerto Rico. So it's going to be a drive-through Christmas around the world. And David and Daniqua are painting the signs for that. So, and yes, we are also going to do some version of a new experience. It may be a play, it may be something else depending on COVID, but it's going to be called Letter to the Future or Letters to the Future. And that's going to be coming. So Daniqua's going to be getting a call about that. And so are you, David. Thank you so much for coming in and talking about the play. And is there any last thing that you'd like to share before you go?
I guess the biggest thing is if anyone's thinking about getting involved, get involved. It's a great thing. And I'm hoping that COVID goes away and stays away, because one of the things that I did miss about last year was the holding, the hands. And I didn't realize why we weren't doing it until almost the end. But I guess one of the best memories is when we ended the first play I'm home, and to see how the community had formed, and the kids, and especially Ron Kid, was so emotional and everything. So I think that's when they really got the bug of being in the plays from that first one, and they were like, we've got to go back and do this again. Because when I mention it to them, they say, "Oh, I've got all this stuff I got to do," and then when it comes down to it, they find some way to find time and be able to get involved. So if you're thinking about getting involved, please do get involved. It's a great community. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Thanks, Donna. Thanks for sharing your heart, and thanks for sharing your talents and your whole family with us.
Oh.
We couldn't do these plays without y'all. It's obvious.
We love it.
I'm glad. Well, Donna's also been in the radio show that we do. The very first I Am Home play started what used to be the Yarn Exchange radio show, which is now the StoryTown radio show and podcast. We changed it to StoryTown because around here we know what a yarn is, but podcast goes all over the place, and maybe people in California think it's a knitting show. So it's the StoryTown show. And we are about to shift into interviews with our radio show folks, including we're going to have a little segment called Stump the Sound Man. So I'm going to step over here with Gary. Donna, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully see you in the next play or one of the next coming radio shows. And I'm going to step over here to talk with Gary, who is our sound engineer or our Foley operator. So the StoryTown radio show was born out of the very first community play that we did here. I think Donna was among some of the people who first got together after the play and said, "Hey, we want to keep something like this going, but how?" Because, doing a play all the time takes a lot of work. So they had a series of monthly discussions and came up with the idea, after several months, of doing a monthly radio show. Well, in 2021, we will start our 10th season of doing this radio show, which is now in podcast form. You can listen to it on your desktop at storytown.simplecast.com, or you can just look up Storytown, all one word, wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can find us. We're on all of the platforms, and we've got more than a dozen episodes up, even though in total we've got over probably 100 episodes by now, including the Christmas shows that we do and some of the specials that we've done. And for the majority of those, Gary Degner has been our Foley operator. He's the one that's the sounds behind the voices. With a radio show, you know, you're not watching it unless you're a lucky member of the live audience. You're not able to watch it and see sets like you do in a regular stage show. So some of the things that are talked about in the script are brought to life through sound effects by Gary. And Gary, before we start, is there anything you'd like to tell folks about the experience of being the Foley operator for the radio show?
Yes, when she first asked me to do this, I thought we were going to do it with recordings in the sound room where you just push the button on time. Well, we did that for the first time. Then she said, Gary, this is an old-time radio show. They didn't do it like that. You have to make the sounds, and you're going to have to do it out there by the stage so everybody can see what you do. I go, why did I ever agree to this? But from that point on, it's really been a lot of fun. And the thing is that sometimes she comes up with some of the gosh awfulest types of things that you have to come up with for sound effects. And thank goodness she gives me the script a little bit early so I could get some stuff together. But I'll tell you what, I sometimes go, this lady's nuts. But okay, but it works out fine.
All right, with that said, I'm going to ask Phyllis Fabozzi, who was in the first I Am Home and has also been the stage manager for the radio show since the very, very start, to come and join me. And we're going to play a little game. It's called Stump the Sound Man. Now, as you see, Gary brought his usual array of strange items that he makes lots of different noises with. Well, I just wrote this scene with some extra sound effects this morning. It's a story that we may have done way in the past, like maybe 2014, but we didn't have all of these sound effects in it, and I made a few additions, and let's just see if Gary can keep up. So I'm going to have Phyllis help me out here. So you're going to get a little taste of what we put Gary through every single month. Ready? Okay. So I am playing the girl, and Phyllis is playing my grandma, okay? All right. I grew up in a house on Cherokee, 2 doors down from where my grandmother lived. A lot of weekends, I would get to spend the night over there. Oh, and she also had a dog. I mean a puppy. Whenever I visit, she likes to walk with me out the garden along her gravel path. And she likes to point out the owl's nest that sits in the tree guarding over her home, and we usually go out there early in the evening to try to hear it. She says it's good luck if you hear an owl in the evening. Woo! 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 And we also make a trip upstairs to the attic almost every time that I'm there. We walk up those stairs, and it takes Grandma kind of a long time to walk up those stairs. And she shows me her collection, and she has so many collections that she likes to share with me. And she has them each labeled in boxes. The last time I visited, she showed me her wind-up metal toys from around 1920, and they still roll and rattle and clank and sort of work. But then she opened up an old chest I'd never seen before because it was covered with other boxes and there were marbles in it. And then she dropped one of the smaller boxes with the old bell that used to hang over the general store that my grandmother had. And then when she opened the trunk, she showed me an old porcelain doll collection. Now, some of the dolls were hers, and some of them were even her mother's, which would be my great-grandmother's. She likes to take them out and show them off for me.
Look at this one. Isn't her dress pretty?
Yes, Grandma. Is that real silk?
It certainly is.
Oh, and this one cries.
I bet
This baby doll cries.
I bet this sets your parents back a pretty penny. Oh, and look at the little hand-sewn leather shoes on this one. I always thought she was special because I wore shoes and a dress just like that. I'd like to tap dance in them too.
Tap dance, yes.
I can still tap dance, see? Oh,
Well, you're a
look.
great tap dancer, Grandma. Oh, and look here. here at this one, the details on the face too. But Grandma, can we put those back? Because I'm done playing. Well, I told that to Grandma because the dolls actually freaked me out, so I dropped them back in the trunk. I gently dropped them back in the trunk.
Oh, honey, I've got to go check on those cookies in the oven anyway. Come on down in a few and they'll be ready.
Okay. So Grandma walked downstairs. As I went downstairs, I kept thinking about the dolls, especially the one doll, the oldest one, with the details painted on the face, almost human-like. It freaked me out. When I went to sleep that night, the door to the room across from me creaked open, just enough so I could see in it. That's when I realized Grandma had brought the dolls out and put them in the room I played in across the hall. Well, I looked through the crack and I could see the dolls, and it almost felt like that doll was watching me. Well, I was fine with the others, but that one, the owl. I listened for the owl, but then I didn't hear it anymore because a wicked storm came, and thunder and lightning started moving in. And it was far off in the distance at first, but then it got closer and louder and louder, and it blew open the door to the bedroom. And then the next flashing of light, I saw the face of the doll and the flashing and the thunder. With each flash, it looked like the doll was in a different place and was moving, crash, thunder. The dog started barking, and then there was more thunder when the dog started barking. And then I ran down the hall to my grandmother's room, down that old wooden hall, and I ran fast, and I spent the rest of the night there. And when I woke up, I thought maybe the storm scared me so much I was seeing things. But when I got to my room, I opened that creaky door across the hall, and perched on the nightstand exactly where I would have been sleeping was that doll.
Whoa.
But I knew it was okay because I heard the owl guarding the house.
Whoa.
And the puppy was protecting me. And the mounted police came down the road to protect Gary. This is and my mother rang the doorbell to come and see if I was okay. Gary, this is supposed to be Stomp the Sound Man, not Stomp the Rider.
Well, how sweet it is when the tables are turned.
All right, round one goes to you, Gary. Well, that is kind of a little bit about how we have fun. Good job, Gary. That was awesome. That was terrific. I'm going to walk over here and talk to Phyllis and say bye to Gary, and thank you, Gary, for doing this. And we're going to have a little conversation about the radio show. So Phyllis was the stage manager for I Am Home, the first play, and then she became the stage manager for the radio show and has been ever since. So I know what it's like from my end because, all I have to do is just kind of write the show. She's got to pull everybody together and communicate everything and tell them everything that you do. And what is it like for you at your end as a stage manager?
Well, actually, I like working with the people, and in I Am Home, it was people, the 70-some cast, and a lot of that cast moved right into the radio show. So the family was born before the show, but the show has been born and is growing and has grown up. Working with all ages, the littlest being 4 years old, and she couldn't even read yet, but she could memorize. And so our job was to just get her up to the mic, tap her on the shoulder when she had to say her line, and she would say her line, and audience loved it. And from that little girl, we went into working with more little children as they came in and out. Worked with people in wheelchairs, worked with octogenarians, had to get them from their seat to the microphone. And but the audience just loved watching them, and I know we have a big participation in the hearing, the radio audience, so I'm thinking they like it as well. And I really do enjoy seeing people blossom, kind of. They moved on. A lot of people have moved on. It's changed a lot. Some have gone off to college. We had younger high school kids, and they've gone off to college. The little ones that couldn't read are now reading and writing some of their own stories. Families have moved, other families have moved in. And so as the stage manager, it just keeps growing. And and the other people that have moved out, if they come and visit, often they come back to the show. And it's really a delight to work with everybody.
Is there a moment in all of these years that kind of stands out to you as, just something that you haven't been able to forget, something that happened that you weren't able to forget?
I think working with the little ones, watching them at the microphone, first being very shy, and then in just a couple shows later able to get right up to that mic, and just seeing the little bitty ones do that, it's just such a treat and such a delight. And they get so confident in themselves, They're able to now go in front of an audience and now speak into a microphone, and a few of them like to speak quite a bit into that mic.
They do. They've gotten really, really confident. And so what is it like also knowing that the stories that the kids and the adults as well are telling are from right here, and sometimes their very own stories?
Well, that, Jules, I think goes into our communication part. And if we don't tell stories, we're going to lose generations. I'm a person who really believes in telling stories. I believe once you open your mouth, you're telling a story. And everybody's got a story to tell. And that story connects. And the bigger the connection, it's like in families. If you don't talk to each other, you don't get connected. But if you're talking to each other and you have that dinner time together, it doesn't have to be all 24/7. But just the communication part of it.
Well, you're kind of the communication hub for these programs. Talk to me about what a typical month looks like for you in putting this show together.
Okay. As soon as the last show ended, the very next day, I put an email out to see who would like to be in the next show. And I had to start giving deadlines because people don't get to their computers. They just let that email rest for a while. So I had to start giving deadlines so Jules could get it put together. But and that worked. They responded if they wanted to come or didn't want to come. We have a cast of each show of between 15 and 25 people, including the all ages again. But after I put that out, then I give them a 2-week reminder. We all need reminders. Our lives are so busy. COVID changed it a little bit, but normally our lives are quite busy, so we all need the reminder. So I give them a 2-week reminder, and then the weekend of the show, another reminder on the computer. That's to the group that's going to be in the show, of the times, and then we do the rehearsal.
It is a lot of logistics keeping up with, at minimum 15. I think we're usually right around 18 to 20 that are in the show, plus the sound engineer, plus the musician, plus the location, putting up the signs and location, and then dealing with the folks coming in and welcoming all of our audiences and making sure everybody has a seat. It is a lot of work, and you've just been amazing. It could not happen without you. It would not happen without you and all of the work that you do. It just simply wouldn't.
I just want to. COVID put a little bit of a wrench into the communication piece.
Tell me about that. How did COVID change? Because more people, I would imagine, are closer to their computers.
They were closer to their computers, but the technology part of what's Facebook Live? What's Zoom? Where do I get Zoom? That was one of the subjects. Where do I get Zoom? And I all but had to go to their houses to help them put down the app. No, the free app. And it went back and forth. I mean, I was kind of glued to my computer chair when that show started, when we did the live and the Zoom, those couple of months. But then they got used to that. So the changes have you know, they've gone pretty smooth. They haven't been too bad.
There's only 1 month that we actually had to cancel, and that was March, and that was when it really hit this country.
Yeah.
And coming up on the end of March is when everything closed down, and it happened so fast that we didn't have a plan yet.
Right.
So we canceled that show, but then we said, wait, we don't cancel, we create. So we found some new creative ways to put the show on.
Yeah.
And you have stayed on top of that every bit of the way. First of all, having people call in when we just did audio, but now we're doing the live stream of the radio show, and it's going up on podcast.
Yeah.
What has been, I know you love to work with the children, and you're so great with them. You make sure that they get up to the stage on time, and you know, wrangling kids on stage is a full-time job. And you get them up there, you make sure that they get their line done, you give them so much encouragement to come back and do it again. Is there a moment in time that's been just your favorite out of all the, or has there been a favorite show or a favorite experience?
They're all. I enjoy every one of them. I really do.
Yeah.
And I enjoy the music guests and watching the children, especially. I think of specific ones that I don't want to name, but go from very shy to very good performers, even writing some stories.
Yes.
Children with a little bit of a stutter, be able to work through that and come up to the microphone. Now, this little young fella still is in our shows, and he comes up now and he says his big parts, where, you know, at first, and I don't know, so there's not really one moment, you know, but every show there's a highlight. Yeah.
And we say yes to anybody who wants to
Yes.
be involved, as long as they're willing to do the work. They've got to come to the rehearsal. They've got to, and they've got to be, you know, really community minded.
Yes.
You know, and to come in and have an appreciation for what these stories are.
And it as far as kind of an advertisement, it's not a hard thing because you can read your script. So if anybody wants the experience of coming in and being a part of a radio show, it's a great opportunity. You just have to call McKinney Center and let them know that you'd be a little bit interested. It's fun to work with us.
It's, you know, it's intentional in that way because it made it more accessible for folks, because we have people of all ages, and because it's radio, like in the form of like Prairie Home Companion, you perform off of a script. You don't just, you know, read their monotone. You do perform, and we do have a live audience for that.
Right.
But we perform off of a script. So people who might have trouble memorizing long chunks that might be excluded from other forms find this form kind of welcoming and kind of fun. And we call it an old-time radio show, but you can also call it like a new kind of podcast, right?
Yeah.
That's based on those stories.
Yeah. Jules, do you remember we were doing I Am Home, and you said to me, you know, this was kind of towards the end, we were about ready to perform the show, and you said, I think in your heart it was like, this is coming to an end. And you said, you know, I've always wanted to do a radio show, and this would be the perfect place to do a radio show. And we just kept encouraging her because we didn't want to stop either. It was just so, you know, it was so good to create this family of, and to get along so well with everybody, race, color, anything.
It did become a family. That play did form a family. And I was really touched because I wasn't living here yet, that this family wanted to find a way to keep coming together.
Yeah.
And coming up next, I'm just going to give a sneak into this idea of family. We have even had families form and then bring more family in this radio show in these past 10 years. Phyllis, thank you for everything that you do for the radio show, and especially for our young people that are involved in it. And keep going, and I think we have another show coming up.
One
at the
more
end of the
little
month.
thing to tell you.
Yes, please.
At one point in time, this was before we weren't at the McKinney Center. This is with the radio show when it first began, and I missed one show in my lifetime with the show, and it was when my grandson was born in Hawaii. And we rehearsed here, and myself or Leon Overbay, who was with us very, very regularly at that time.
He was our host.
Would come open the building and get it ready for the people for rehearsal. He called me on the phone and asked me if I had the key. And that's middle of the night, because here we're 6 hours difference. So we woke everyone in the house up, and did I have the key to the center? That was a highlight of my remembering what went on as far as stage management go.
The one and only show you ever missed,
Yes.
and you got called
Yes.
in Hawaii
Yes.
for the key.
Yes.
You couldn't even have one day off.
And I said to him, even if I had it, I couldn't get it to you.
I do remember when that happened, and that was funny.
That was
That
funny.
was very funny. Thanks, Phyllis. Thanks for all the laughs and all the wonderful tears of care and love. I appreciate you so much.
Thanks, Jules.
And now I'm going to walk over here just a second while David and Dana Kehs join us. But when I first met Dana, she was Dana Jensen, I believe. And she first came in as an audience member to watch David on stage. And pretty soon, before I knew it, I had one of the best actors I ever had join us on the stage. And then I got to watch the two of them a short time later get married. And so we've had a wonderful time with them, and always with David, who was an original I Am Home cast member, and then he became a radio show actor. And ever since he brought Dana, she's been the two of them have been with us the whole time. So I'd like to welcome David and Dana Kehs. Thank y'all so much for coming in. So you've been here and you were watching Gary do sound effects, and you were watching Phyllis with stage management. And as you're listening to them talk about their experiences, what's bubbling up for you right now? Before I even ask you anything else, what's bubbling up for you? What ideas and memories are popping in?
For me, it's all the people's names. And I wouldn't want to start name dropping, but these are all people I was relatively new to the community, and I'd only been living here for a while with my mother, and she was familiar with Jonesboro. But the people that I met at that first play in the old school building before it was refurbished and restored to usability, to the point where the fire department had to man the building in order to have clearance to be there. And it was tremendous. I feel like I kind of got shanghaied by Linda. Oh, you're going to show up one time. We just need somebody to fill in. Boom. I was there. So.
That's how it works. And David, you've also done a lot of the sets for us too. So thank you for that beautiful work.
Well, a lot of fun.
Dana, tell us about one of your first experiences, or what memory was bubbling up for you as you were listening to them.
Well, when David and I first got together, we were more friends than dating, and he brought me to a show, one of the Yarn Exchange shows. And I remember sitting in that audience, and there was a particular scene. I don't remember all of it, but I remember you were in it, and you played a daughter, and I believe the daughter had died. And I sat in that audience and bawled and bawled and bawled, and determined that I loved this and that's what I wanted to do. And I could hardly believe he knew everybody that was up there. And that was very impressive.
Do you have a favorite role that you have played, either on the radio show or in the play? Because you've been in the community plays now too. Mm-hmm. You weren't in the very first time home, but then you were in, when we brought it back, you were in I Am Home in the refurbished building that didn't have to have a policeman, a fireman standing outside, and actually had bathrooms this time. And then you were in the Long Trip Home, and then and you've done costumes. You've done costumes for the Long Trip Home and Lifelines, and I think for most of the shows.
That I do love. Period costumes, especially, and actually, any chance I get to play a period person, 1800s is totally me, and I enjoy that. As a particular person, gosh, I don't remember a particular one. I have just been thoroughly enjoying all of them. Any one that I get a chance to play, I love it, and I want to do the best that I can with that.
And you've been in some of the senior center plays too, right?
Yes. Yes. Now there was a fun one there. I got to play a lady, and I don't remember her name, but I got to play a lady that was a cop, and I got to play a cop, and I was kind of supposed to be this tough cookie, and someone said I was typecast, but I don't know. He said that. But I enjoyed it.
What does it mean to you to know that you're playing somebody just from this community?
Well, for me, it was incredible because when I moved to Tennessee, I already grown up with Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett, so I had a mental image of what this area was like. But when I got here, I just couldn't believe that they trucked for miles and miles up and down the hills. I've been a flatlander most of the time, so that was interesting. And boy, it was more about getting to know people. And the people I met in the play grew into the people I knew from the radio show, and then the people from the Historical Society with Angie Ann Mason. It just keeps on growing. Dana will be doing a tour this Halloween with the Historical Society, and it just grew and grew and grew. Some of my best friends today were people I first met at the radio show or at the play, and men in particular I think of because they kind of inspired me. Being in a place scared the devil out of me. I spent 90% of my time worrying about whether I was going to get my lines right. And then when I finally felt confident, I looked around and, well, how come these other people aren't up as fast as me when I'm so slow? It didn't matter when I finally came around, but the getting to know people, a play is one heck of a way to do it. And it's been tremendous.
With me, people may or may not know, but I am a tour guide for the Heritage Alliance for Jonesboro. But before, and I use this every time I introduce myself at the beginning of my tours, but before I met him, before I came to the Yarn Exchange, before anything, I was on a family vacation, and we ended up strolling the streets of Jonesboro. And the very moment, I got chill bumps, the very moment my foot stepped on Jonesboro soil, I felt this connection that just blew me away. It blew me away. And for me to be a part of something that could tell the stories of those that I felt, that I spiritually felt, is just an amazing opportunity. This town has been my hometown more than any town I've ever lived in. There is such a connection here. And that is what I say about these stories. They need to be told. These people that lived here before us and now, these stories need to be told.
And what is it, do you think, that draws people to see you as a tour guide and the Heritage Alliance as a tour guide, and to come to the radio shows and to come to the plays? What's drawing them there, do you think?
It is the love of this community together. It's not just how I feel about it, it's how everybody I know here in Jonesboro feels about it. Everywhere you go, there are people that promote this town, that understand the past, that are looking to the future, everywhere you go here, and that sense of community isn't found everywhere else. And people are drawn to that. They're drawn to our love that we have for this community, for each other.
Would you say that when you came to the radio show and the plays that you found, like David, a set of friends?
My best friends that I have now, I have found from that time, from coming to the radio show. Radio Show First, Heritage Alliance, JRT, McKinney Center, all of them. And we're all interconnected and interwoven. I just love this place. I am a promoter of Jonesboro big time.
I hear that loud and clear, and we're also lucky to have you doing that for us, and also to be on stage or behind the scenes doing this work.
Thank you.
Is there one favorite thing as we begin to close out our magazine launch week? Is there one favorite thing or moment that you can think of that you've been able to do that you might not have done before?
The costumes.
The costumes.
There's more than that. Actually, everything I've done since I've come to Jonesboro is something I would not have ever done before. But the ability to have people appreciate that I can do what I did with the costumes, and that I can do it more and more, that's what really gets me.
Yeah, you really dressed the show. Your eye for details and time periods just give everybody that beautiful pop. So thank you for all the work that you've done with that. And then David also does something to make things pop, which is our sets. Can you, even though we're talking about radio show, we don't really do sets on the radio show, but you've been involved since the very beginning. Talk to us just a little bit about your set work.
The set work for me was, I'm grateful for my sign painter experience.
Yeah.
Because I don't really have an art style that I'm locked into. I have a job mentality. You want this? Okay. You want that? Okay. That's not quite what I thought. Okay. You know, I can bend along with most of that. And to see people come along like Daniqua and give it a shot and do such a great job. That's a lot of fun. I'm getting older, so I don't care much about what I get to do, but I like to see the other people getting involved. And
Tell me how you worked with Daniqua.
She came along at exactly the right time. I had gone in for some medical things at the hospital, and I got taken out of the picture for that one particular one. And she just did it. A just do it attitude is the most helpful attitude you can have. And I gotta say that, you know, in getting to meet people, I often heard talk about, oh, it's hard to become an insider. You know, this is a pretty close-knit community. And the more inside I got, the more I realized that most of the people are from somewhere else. And they just love it and they came here. And like I had the privilege of getting to know you. You were brand new to the community when you started out with the first time home. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, but I would have liked to say the director's name, but I can't remember it.
Richard Owen Gear.
Richard Owen Gear. And he had enthusiasm that was contagious.
Yes.
In this age of contagion. But enthusiasm was good. And I just really, and as things went along, Dana's grandchildren came to live with us, and they love getting involved. For what you see on stage or what you see of them when they show up for these events, there's days of, you know, setting that stage at home before we ever walk in the door together. So, and to watch them grow up in it is really nice. And their friendships are tied to the friends they've met.
So it's kind of a running theme, friends and family. And I think that's what you get when you know somebody's story, is you're You're not this outsider anymore. You're not this faceless other anymore. You're somebody with a story that I have compassion for, or you have compassion for me. And the very first day when we were talking with Bob Browning and Jimmy Neal Smith, Bob said one of the reasons that he really wanted to support the StoryTown program is because he knew it would build relationships. And as we've gone through the week, we've seen these relationships, people who have come to know each other that might not have known each other, or families who are able to come a little bit closer in learning their own story or where they fit into the community. I invite you to come to one of our plays or watch our student film festival. The students make stories of their own. To come, once we start doing the live radio shows again, come to one of the live shows or listen to the StoryTown podcast, or pick up your own copy of the magazine that talks about the different programs that we have. Become a story collector like you heard from yesterday, or come to one of our writers groups and see if it's something that you like to do. Whatever it is that you do that has to do with story, chances are we have a program about it, and if we don't, come by the McKinney Center and give us your idea, and we'll see what we might be able to do. Thank you, Lily Urbach, for putting together this beautiful magazine, and thank you, Town of Jonesboro, and all of our amazing volunteers, our storytellers, our story collectors, our actors, our sound folks, our stage managers, and our technical crew. We appreciate you, we thank you, and thanks for joining us this week.